So, my topic today is a radical departure from what we've been hearing, from what we've been seeing in the news, from what the government that just has fallen has been telling us the last 9 years. And that is for our youth to be radicalized. It's because of our selective morality. Well, here I have Western and Canadian. For the Somalis here, which are the majority, we're the kids of the Cold War. There was the West and the East. Guess what? We are the West. So you are part of the problem. So it's about time we take ownership of that. And this is a Canadian problem. So that's what I will be talking about. First of all, we have to agree on what we're talking about. So I have selective morality, I have radicalization, which will lead to terrorism. What can we agree on definition? Because as a professor, I like to define problems. Then I can find a solution. Or I can help use my students to find a solution I can get credit for. That's what professors are, right? So we have many questions. Is there an answer? Do we have an answer? I believe we do. And I believe you have an answer too. Okay? Well, we'll be clear, and I'm glad that I followed Inspector Dan because he just said it so. Radicalization, terrorism is not an ethnic problem. It's not a religious problem. It is a Canadian problem. And we will solve it when we take it as a Canadian problem. Period. I'll show you some examples of what I mean by selective morality. 2 will come from Canada. The 3rd, Canada has contributed to it. And the 4th, it happened somewhere in Africa, but we have a role to play being in the West. And it's great to talk about, as Somalis, we talk about problems, it's always somebody else's. What is the solution? Somebody may tell me, oh, we are a nation with documented, institutionalized racism, so what? Have a thick skin, live with it. The First Nations lived with it, people before you lived with it, you're going through it, maybe the Syrians will live with it, so it will not be you tomorrow. I'm not going to live with it, sorry. Okay? I will show you what the tools of the trade, are that allow our Canadian youth, whoever they are, what allows them to take extreme views and resort to violence in far-flung areas that many of us have not even heard of. And I'll show you how that cycle is. It's a cycle. How is it? And finally, I will propose some policy prescriptions. When I say policy, it does not mean it comes from the government, it comes from us. We tell the government how we're going to solve it. Okay? Let's get started. Ask yourself, how does a group that has no base, but they call themselves Al-Qaeda, which means the base, how do they succeed poisoning the mind of the Canadian youth? They have no base. We're educated. Would we understand that? Number 2, how does a motley of middle-aged men masquerading as the youth, Al-Shabaab, which means the youth. These are old men. They call themselves the youth. Again, they're hiding something. How can they convince our Canadian youth to join them in their jihad to help? As a parent, I would like to know, again, how do we Canadians and the global community allow our youth to be influenced by a group that's neither a state and that's neither Islamic? That's ISIL. All of these groups, they go in chronology. They have no base, base, they call themselves the base. They are not youth, they call themselves the youth. They are neither state nor Islamic, they call themselves Islamic State. How are they succeeding in recruiting our kids? What can parents, policymakers, and the police, what can we do in order to prevent our youth from falling victim to that hatred? What I mean by morality, I'm a simple guy. It's the Merriam-Webster Web Dictionary says it's the degree to which something is right and good. That's simple. That's morality. You apply selectivity to it, it's a problem. So in other words, you decide what is good today, and you decide what is bad tomorrow. Radicalization, I will use the RCMP, because they are the ones who end up knocking at my door, right? So I may as well leave with their definition of what they call radicalization. They call them is a process by which individuals are introduced to an overtly ideological message and belief system that encourages them movement from moderate mainstream beliefs towards extreme views. There is nothing wrong with radicalization, and that definition shows it. But when you cross it to violence, that's a problem. So you be proud if you have a radical thinking. Be proud if you have a radical idea. But do not cross it and mix and match it with violence. And again, terrorism. Terrorism, I'll take it what public safety says. I'll let you read it. But these are the definitions that I will live by. Okay, if somebody disagrees, you can let me know before I delve into my topic. Okay, I said it's a Canadian problem. If you read the news, if you look at everywhere, they make it as if it is an ethnic, so-called ethnic and religious problem. It's the Pakistanis, Afghanis, it's maybe Indonesia yesterday, Malaysia today, Syria, they're religious Islamic countries are having problems. So that's, unfortunately, that's the wrong view. Okay? Let's go to CSIS, the intelligence service. They're the ones that we pay. Our tax money goes to them, right? So that they can give us the intelligence. In their latest report from the 2013 to 2014, it's right there for you. What they're telling you radicalization is, guess what? From different social backgrounds. Isn't that Canadian definition? We're from everywhere, United Nations, right? Social backgrounds. We're different age groups. Could be the youth, could be old, it doesn't matter. And they say they have range of educational credentials. They may have no education, they may have PhDs, they all fall victim. And they often, and this is the killer, that's the one I like. They say radicals always believe, seem to be fully integrated into society. So somebody who is from all types of society, who has education, so you can say it's just the poor and uneducated. Somebody who have, they appear to be well integrated. These are the people that fall and become radicalized. The question I have for our government is, how are you going to stop that? Is that a Somali problem? I don't think so. We're just one part of it. Is that an ethnic problem? It is not. Is that a so-called Arab problem? It is not. So therefore, that's why I say my thesis is this is a Canadian problem, and only when we realize it's a Canadian problem can we find a made-in-Canada solution. Okay? Selective moral is in action. Okay? We are, at the end of the day, I am proud to be a Canadian, and I'm also proud to criticize when I see a problem. Let's look at this two examples side by side. You have Justin Burke, a white male from Moncton, New Brunswick, and you have Michael Zihab Bibo. As you can tell, the middle name is from Alva, right? Even though he's a Canadian kid. What Justin Burke did is he terrorized the city of Moncton for 40 hours. He has killed, unfortunately, 3 RCMP officers. He has injured 2. And they were very good at, after the fact, as long as it does not apply to the others, we like to investigate, get to the bottom of it. The retired RCMP commissioner that investigated actually said he had better weapons than the entire RCMP that was responding to it. And watch what he says. This is the prosecutor explaining what he did. He targeted the police because he hated them. Not for greed, not for money, but specifically because of who they were. Because of the badge they had and everything. Guess what? Can anybody tell me? That was 2014. Up to today, there is no record, either in government or in print, where he has been identified as a terrorist. Isn't he a terrorist? Okay. What happened on the other side? The other. This is a guy who has killed, and I mourn the loss of a corporal. He has killed a corporal. He has attacked our parliament buildings. And here is the commissioner of the RCMP that says if he has not been killed and we have taken him into custody, we would have charged him in terrorism. The same RCMP commissioner that up to today has not identified Mr. Justin Burke as a terrorist because he's a white man and this is a brown man. Guys, that's our problem. Okay? And this is a picture if you want to see it. Look at the guns that they have. Is not the terrorist on the right, because he's a white male. And the terrorist, he has a gun which is called Winchester 1894. It was made in 1894. That's the only thing that saved our parliament. If he had the guns that Justin Burke had, we wouldn't have had a lot of losses in parliament. He is a terrorist. The guy who had no weapons than the RCMP is not a terrorist. That is our problem. Because it's always the other. But when it's the mainstream, we don't do anything about it. We have also 2 cases. We have Brenda Martin and we have Bashir Makhtar. Both of them were detained in a foreign country in 2006. Brenda Martin was detained in Mexico. And Bashir Makhtar was detained in Kenya. He was illegally rendered to Ethiopia. And for many months, Ethiopia did not even acknowledge they had him. Okay? What did the government of the day do? From the Prime Minister top down, everyone was advocating, rightly so, for the release of Brenda Martin. Our Prime Minister said, we are all troubled by the fact that a Canadian had been in Mexican prison now for 2 years without trial. At the time, for 2 years, Bashir Makhtar had not had even a court appearance. So here, both of them are Canadians. And guess what? Who advocated belatedly for Bashir Makhtar? Not the Prime Minister, not the Minister of Foreign Affairs, whose job is falls under, but by the Minister of Public Transport. Because Somalis happen to be a larger community in his riding. Is that the type of Canada we want to live in? No, and that is the problem. That is selective morality in action. Now let's go, because we live in a global village, let's go out to the world. In Libya, what happened in 2011? 193 people were killed in Benghazi. It's called the Benghazi massacre. The entire Western Wall. Our Canadian bombers took a valiant part in liberating and removing the dictator Muammar al-Gaddafi. What happened when 200 people were massacred in the Ogaden, which is a place where I come from? That is inside Ethiopia. Human Rights Watch said what happened there is a genocide. The West tells us there was a genocide in Libya. They removed the here. We hosted him in the G20 in 2010 in my city, our home city of Toronto. That's the problem that we have. That is selective morality. And this is our problem. Amin Ahmed, which is a famous artist, articulated what I could not say in words. When Ethiopia had genocide in Ogaden, here is the Ethiopian dictator who is painting them with the brush of the Ogaden National Liberation Front. He killed civilians, he brushed them. He says they belong to terrorists, right? That's the word again. And then his friend, General al-Bashir of Sudan, he has been taken to the World Court because of genocide he did in Darfur, rightly so. What about Ethiopia? So he's asking him, why are you killing these people? Are you not afraid that you'll be taken to the Hague? He said, you're wrong, because you killed the wrong group. If you kill Somalis and you call them terrorists, the world community doesn't give a damn. So that's our problem. Now somebody may tell me, okay, Mohammed, you know, well, all this has happened. We're a nation with institutionalized racism, so how to fix it? We're the nation that in 1914 sent away what is called Komagata Maru. This is a ship that was carrying 360-something Indians who were running away from persecution. Guess what? They were sent back because they were brown people. Again, what did we do? We were the very nation that many women here will be disappointed to hear, that we did not consider women even to be a person. That's called the person's case from the 1920s. And had it not been that radical five, that's why radicalism, when you don't apply violence, but you go through the court system, and advocacy is great. The radical five, actually what happened is the North American Act did not even recognize women to be a person. So the case went to the Supreme Court to define whether women were actually a person. You may ask, what's wrong with that? Because if you're not a person, you cannot vote, you don't exist. So people will tell me, how fixed it, man? That was just 70, 80 years ago. Again, we were the nation 15 years later that, interned the Japanese. And people will tell me, be glad that we're not putting you in camp. At least we're just calling you a radical or a terrorist. Sorry guys, I am not going to accept that. It's a Canadian problem, it's my problem, I need to solve it, you need to solve it, we need to solve together. So now I'm going to answer the question, how do these people, the ones with no base, the ones who are neither a state nor Islamic, the ones who are not youth but are calling themselves the youth, how are they reaching our youth? Because there is Professor Google, right? Anything you don't know, just Google it. Okay, so what happens? A depressed youth is going to Google something. Okay, he's going to get information. In other words, information is at their fingertips. And guess what happens if I want to know a how-to? And I don't want to go to university, I dropped out. There is YouTube Open University. Just type how-to, you will get everything you want. And then guess what? All you need is an access to the internet. And the furthest corner in the world is an internet access. Maybe faster than what you have in Canada. And sometimes maybe free. And then you may say, wait a minute, we also have a highly educated system. How can that not help us? Actually, the education system works against us. Because what did we do? We taught our kids to be critical thinkers. Yeah? We don't teach them to memorize. The road method is out of date. So we say, if I tell you something, does it make sense? The student will challenge me. It's great, but guess what? Once I convince that student, they will accept it, and they will be more radical than I am. And that is why the education system is not helping us. And then guess what happens with all Professor Google, YouTube Open University, and our education critical thinkers? Prophets of doom then come in, and all they have to do is, see, Bashir Makhtar is a Canadian, was not helped. Brenda Martin is a white woman. He goes, hell, you don't belong here. Come, join us. Okay? You look at Justin Berg, he's a white man. Okay, he has more weapons than the RCMP, but he's not a terrorist. But Martin, Zihad People, he's a brown man with a Winchester 1894. He's a terrorist. Come join us. You don't belong. You don't have a stake. The moment our youth do not feel they have a stake in Canada, that's where they go. And I would like to finish up this, please. Okay, now what is the cycle? Okay? Number one, we have a youth that has an identity crisis. The youth are between cultures. Okay? My kids are born here, but I'm from somewhere else, even though I am proud to be Canadian. Okay, so, and youth naturally go through an identity crisis. When I was in university, 24 years old, and I look at a friend of mine who's 30 years old, and they have everything I want and I don't have, that's a crisis. And then what happens? I finished university. I was promised I'm going to have a good job. I am unemployed graduate. Now I'm competing for a security guard job, but I have a university degree. And then guess what happens? I am disillusioned with the political process. I said, wait a minute. Honorable Stephen Harper calls, okay, some terrorists, some doesn't terrorists. What do I do? You have all those, and it's going to lead to, I have lost state. And guess what? If I have identity crisis, what am I going to do? Who am I? Professor Google, tell me who am I? Okay, there's a group that shares my idea. I am unemployed graduate. That means I have time on my hands. YouTube. Look up. Okay, first of all, I'm going to start with looking at beautiful animals from Kenya fighting, and then I'm going to graduate to how to, and God knows where. I have lost state. Don't watch nothing. If I am disillusioned with the political discourse, I go to social media, Facebook. I'm going to post something I don't have any idea with. Guess what? The youth who, because they're disillusioned, they put their picture, their profile picture to one of ISIL. Are they a victim or are they the radicals? They are a victim. And instead of reaching out to them, we call them what? Oh, okay, the RCMP counts, they say, oh, about 5,000, okay, radicals or terrorists in Canada. If they have 5,000, why don't they arrest them? But the 5,000 are the ones who have Facebook pages that they don't even know why they have that picture. Maybe their friend had it. Okay, and when you have all those, that's the cycle our youth are finding themselves. Okay, now the question is, what is the solution? I have gone beyond my time. I'm going to finish up with my solution. Number one is we have to renew our Canadian values. I like our Prime Minister. He said a Canadian is a Canadian is a Canadian. But now is where I hold our Prime Minister to account. Now show me the action. Words achieved. Number two, guys, Bill Clinton in 1992, 20 years ago, he said, it's the economy stupid. Let's find jobs for our unemployed graduates. The people who are impacted the most are the youth. The people who are impacted the most are the Somalis, the Kenyans, the Eritreans, the Ethiopians, the Oromos. Those are the people who do not have a network. In Somalia, we kill each other because of a network, but guess what here? It's the same network, but we call it a better name. So my uncle doesn't work in the Ministry of Justice, so I'm not even aware. There's an internship that's coming up that I qualify. And the final one, and I'm glad that still we have the law enforcement, let's rethink our law enforcement approach to radicalization and terror investigation. Why is it that not a single recruiter, not a single prophet of doom has not been arrested or prosecuted in Canada when we are arresting 17, 18, 19 years old? When our kids are going to Syria, where is the network? Where is the network that connected them to Syria? They didn't know anything about. So what I'm saying is, let the law enforcement change the approach and view, unless the evidence is there, view our youth as victims of radicalization instead of them being instigators of radicalization. And last but not least, as a parent, as an engaged parent, we have a role for the parents. The role for the parents It starts with the parents. Government cannot do everything. Thank you very much.
I apologize. That's all I'm going to say, because we have a preacher as well as a presenter here. So the RCMP is sitting, and I will give for them to respond and comment at the end of the panelists. But let me just move on, because time is an essence. Please welcome Professor Smiley to the podium.
Good afternoon, and thank you everybody for being here. Assalamu alaikum. And just let me say that I am here because Ahmed invited me. And I was Mohamed's professor in political science. So I think he invited me because he took a Canadian foreign policy course and some other courses with me. And maybe that's where he got some of his radical ideas. I'd like to think so. Anyway, thank you very much. When